Welcome to LWL. We're a group of people that meet informally the last Wednesday of most months. So the group that puts these events together includes Peter Damali, and I'm going to raise your hand higher. Oh, hi. Tom Swar, Janelle Terone, Jeff Stewart, and then Jennifer and Jim Boucher. And we began after Jim decided to retire from City Council, and we wanted the conversations to continue. We have some thoughts, some ideas that we want presented to people, allow people to find out a little bit more than what you read in the Hartford Courant, a little bit more depth. I want to thank Spotlight Theaters for allowing us to use the space. It is a really nice thing to have this space every week. All this equipment that works, somebody else figures it out. It's wonderful. And then, of course, Hartford Public Access TV tapes our shows so that a wider audience is able to participate. Tonight's speaker is Heather Dion. She has been the City of Hartford Forester since 2012. She manages the urban forest in Hartford, which includes 2,000 plus acres of green space and 434 shoulder miles of roadway. She works in partnership with Knox Inc. in the reforestation program for the city and is a member of the city's tree commission. She also assists with drafting of some of the strongest zoning regulations in the country for protecting and enhancing the urban canopy in Hartford. Other positions she has held include University arboriculturalist at the University of Connecticut in Storrs. She was a staff scientist at GEI Consultants in Glastonbury, supervisor York County Soil and Water, Springvale, Maine, shoreland specialist, New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services in Concord, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, general manager, Abbott Hill Tree Service, North Berwick, Maine, and others. She has attended numerous certification programs since graduating from the Unity College and is a licensed arborist. She has been the chair of the Connecticut Urban Forest Council since 2012. Her most recent awards include 2015, she was named Outstanding Urban Forestry Award with Knox Inc. in recognition of their collaborative urban forestry program. 2017, Tree Warden of the Year by the State Tree Wardens Association. And in 2018, she's recognized by the city's Park and Recreation Advisory Commission for her management of 600,000 trees in the city. Please welcome Heather Dion.
Thank you, Donna. Good evening, everyone. I was honored to be given this opportunity to talk about something that is so near and dear to my heart, and that is trees. Specifically, why we need them. Trees to many aren't anything spectacular. It's probably because they don't talk and they don't move in a way that would catch anyone's attention, unless there's a storm. But if you think about it, how when you were a kid and when you had a tree in the backyard that you would climb, or say you had a tree in the front yard that when you got into a fight with your sibling, you would sit under finding some peace, perhaps daydreaming or reflecting on the argument you just had. I know it sounds weird, but there's a point here. That 10 minutes of peace and tranquility for a child that is 8 years old could provide more benefits to feeling restored and give more mental balance, something that everyone should have access to for themselves, their children, and their grandchildren. Now picture a yard or an entire block without any trees. No park close by for the children or adults to go to for a reprieve. It's hot out, nearly 100 degrees, and the humidity is unbearable. You can't afford air conditioning, and you're on the 3rd floor of an apartment complex. Are you agitated yet? This describes many areas within our city where there are hardly any trees. We call these tree deserts. These tree deserts typically occur where there is more poverty, higher incidences of violence, and lower home values. It is a situation that presents concern, especially when it's something that many of us take for granted. If only every child had a tree to hang out under. Well, we are trying to change that. Over the past 6 years, 5,000 trees have been planted here in the city. But what we are realizing is that number isn't nearly enough to get us to where we need to be. To maintain our existing canopy of 26%, we need to plant 1,400 trees a year. Not enough to create a canopy of 35%, which is comparable to New Haven. We need to plant over 6,000 trees a year for 30 years. And when you think of young trees, you could compare them to taking care of babies. They need far more care in their younger years than they do when they get older and established. Similarly, when they reach their older years, we'll call them elder trees. They will require more maintenance, just like the elderly in our own population. More doctor's visits, perhaps some medication. It's what is necessary to stay alive. These elder trees will most likely require pruning, perhaps a cable or two to stay safely intact, or may even need to be removed. All of which takes a very skilled individual to perform such tasks. Did you know that the forestry profession is one of the deadliest jobs in America? It's true. You can't ask anyone to run a chainsaw in a bucket truck without proper training and some type of apprenticeship. Any good employer will have minimum requirements before hiring someone to run a chainsaw or feed a chipper, certainly to climb a tree. Or better yet, they'll train them or send them somewhere for more intensive training. Anything to reduce the risk of death or injury. For example, there's a course given every year called EHAP, which stands for Electrical Hazard Awareness Protection, and is offered because conducting tree maintenance around electrical wires is incredibly dangerous. We see that during major storm events when lines come down. I'll never forget a call that I arrived at where a tree came down and knocked down wires and a pole. The fire department had been first on the scene and had taped off the area. When I stepped out of the truck, I could feel the surge of electricity coming up through my shoes from the pavement. It was definitely eye-opening and was a good reminder about this potentially silent killer. Emergency response is something that I don't take lightly. We try to mitigate hazards as best as possible, but there are times when we cannot predict an event and a tree falls on a car or a house. The person in the bucket has to be very careful on how they are making their cuts, and even more so, the person running the log truck or payloader has to carefully lift that wood off of whatever it fell on. Precision is everything, especially if there's someone trapped. Regular tree maintenance certainly reduces the risk of failure during storms or any time. Reducing the amount of leaf surface by as little as 10% on a mature tree could mean that it could survive an ice storm without any damage. This is critical to keeping our canopy healthy, because for every large tree that we lose a significant part of the human and environmental benefits that they provide. The trees that suffered during Storm Alfred with large tears from the loss of a limb are declining now to the point of needing to be removed. Then there's the critical maintenance, where traffic lights or stop signs need to be clear so people driving see what they need to do. Or if there's a large dead limb over the roadway that needs to be cut, we'd address it. There are many components to keeping our trees healthy and our residents safe. This city has somewhere around 600,000 trees. I am responsible for 434 shoulder miles of roadway and over 2,500 acres of green space and woodlands. This is a tremendous responsibility. Along with this, the city has an incredibly wonderful tree ordinance that protects trees from destruction for the benefit of the entire urban forest. Other challenges that we currently face are drought and invasive pests. This is more of a statewide issue than being localized to Hartford. The past 3 years of drought impacted our urban forest in ways that we never could have imagined. Because of the drought, the trees are structurally weaker. They are so stressed that invasive insects such as the gypsy moth have defoliated trees to the point that many have died throughout the state. And if they haven't been finished off by the gypsy moth, it is the two-lined chestnut borer that will do just that. State officials have indicated that upwards of 100,000 to 300,000 acres of trees are dead in the state. That's a huge number for little old Connecticut. It is going to impact resources significantly and cost millions of dollars to mitigate, if that is even possible. Though gypsy moth has not been a huge issue in the city, emerald ash borer has. This beautiful little insect, which made its way to the US from China, is killing every ash tree in sight. Here in the city, we have removed over 100 ash trees and are currently treating a similar amount. This will lessen the burden financially and hopefully leave the city with some ash trees for the future. A typical tree removal cost is between $700 to $1,000 per tree. Sometimes, because of the equipment and personnel required, a tree will cost upwards of $5,000 to remove. An estimated number to remove the dead or hazardous trees identified throughout the city this year is approximately $700,000. This number does not include pruning maintenance, where you would add probably another $350,000. These numbers are for contracting the work out, and that is why we are working diligently on a business case for hiring staff to assist with lessening this financial burden. Yes, that's a lot of money, but it is necessary for folks to understand that if we are going to keep a healthy city with lesser risk of tree failure, money will need to be spent and resources will be needed. 10 years ago, in Worcester, Mass., 35,000 trees had to be removed within a 110 square mile radius to contain the incredibly devastating Asian longhorn beetle. This insect would love nothing more than to annihilate Hartford's tree canopy. If this insect were to set up shop here, we would not have any maple trees left, as that is one of the insect's choice species. Just think about the beautiful fall color that we see throughout Hartford. It would not exist. They say this insect is like looking for a needle in a haystack. They even have bug-sniffing dogs to help find infestations. On to Mother Nature and the wrath of storms that she has thrown at the US and throughout the world. Climate change is real, folks. Trees just happen to be the front runner in preventing climate change. If every city changes their urban forestry program to focus on preventative maintenance in their mature trees and focuses on bolstering their planting program, then we are certainly well on our way to helping slow the devastating effects. Connecticut is not immune to the blow of a strong hurricane. The ocean waters are very warm, and for a hurricane, this is fuel. I guess my point is that we cannot take trees for granted. They provide so many benefits and we cannot allow this city to reach such devastating levels of tree poverty. Every single resident, business owner, and visitor would suffer. This is more or less a wake-up call. I can do my best to inform you all, but in reality, there needs to be movement, and fairly quick movement. We need more boots on the ground, more skilled employees, a training program specific to trees. We also need youth to know that there is a career in trees, one that would benefit the city in which they live and also leave a legacy for their children. Hence the importance of an urban forestry program. There is a growing partnership in support of trees here in the city. From the Tree Advisory Commission to Knox, the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Office of Sustainability, Connecticut Deep, the Mayor's Office, the Hartford Garden Club, and the Hartford Insurance Company, and now the Tree Working Group. The newest leadership at DPW has been remarkable in their response and assistance as well. So, imagine you are in your yard and you are sitting under a large oak tree during a hot summer day. The kids are in the side yard playing in a kiddie pool. You are reading a book and there is a little breeze. The leaves are rustling and the shade has lowered the temperature by several degrees. Life is good. You are at peace. Let's all remember this feeling and educate and advocate for this quality of life. Thank you.
So this is our question and answer period. And if you have a question, I have a microphone so that's captured by the recording. So does somebody have a question? Okay.
Is there?
No.
Are there programs for like donate a tree within the city, or what can people do to help the situation?
So we're trying to work on getting the tree fund, I think, available for people. Okay, so the question was, is there a way for people to donate trees or help the city with their planting program? I think we're trying to iron out the details and how we can make that possible. But as soon as we do have that available, we will publicize that.
It's not working. Okay, Heather.
True.
The trees that are most at risk in the city of Hartford are ash trees, of course, right? The ash borer.
Yeah.
How are your sugar maples doing? I have sugar maples in my house, and I think they're stressed right now.
Yeah.
Significantly.
We've taken down a lot of sugar maples. They just can't handle the heat or the salt. The same goes with Norway maples. They've kind of reached the max of their lifespans as well, and the drought definitely has exacerbated their need for removal.
Well, this doesn't.
Flip it up on the light on the one. Yeah, okay. Just flip it up on the right.
No? Failed.
It's an informally, technically challenged.
Maybe she'll repeat.
Yeah, I'll repeat.
Okay, so Jack,
Yes, speak up.
Why don't you talk about planting on private property as a way to do that?
Right, so another method of increasing the canopy throughout the city is encouraging planting on private property. A good amount of our canopy exists on private property, so the more correct species that are planted on private property, the better we can make some headway.
Any other questions? So I'm going to call on people, and then Heather, please repeat. So Janelle.
Obviously, this is a huge job for you, but I always think about sustainability and who to go to. Is there a program in the public school right now that is fixed about what you say today? So I think that if the youth knows what's going on, we might have a chance to get them engaged in helping you building the canopy in the city.
Right, so the question is there any programs that have been kind of implemented within the school system? There's some. I really don't think that there's enough. And with me being chair of the Urban Forest Council, that's something that we're working on. We're going to be contributing to the Forest Action Plan in 2020. So I think that's going to be a good component to include in there, so that way there's policy and it can be kind of permanently embedded there.
Any other questions? We have a couple of people.
So first of all, I've never felt so comforted while listening to the doom and perils of society. Thank you. Thank you on that.
It's in good hands.
Bigger office. But with that, what's the general position of the city? You mentioned something about climate change, which is a fun definition. Is the position of this, you or the city or whatever it is, of a more of like a global warming kind of thing, or a grand solar minimum type of thing, UV, ultraviolet light, like, go. Good luck.
Wait,
Good luck with that. So climate change is a thing,
Right, it's a thing. Climate change is a
and
thing.
whatever that means.
Right.
But there's a direction, so what would the direction, because maybe if it's gonna get colder, you get more evergreens, if it gets warm, you get more deciduous trees. I don't know. What's the kind of the general policy, the direction?
I mean, we definitely need a combination of both deciduous and evergreen. They both function very well with containing stormwater and you know, bringing that up. Shade is definitely something, though, that we need more of to lower the temperatures.
If they get too low?
What's that?
What if they get too low?
The temperatures get too low?
What if they do?
Then we'd have a boreal forest, right?
I'm just gonna swing past you. I'm gonna replace the batteries for this one.
Okay.
Next
Sorry about that.
question. Gary, go ahead.
You had mentioned a couple comments ago about, I don't know if you used the word proper, but proper trees to plant. I don't know if that's the word you used,
Mhm.
what do you want that? But what are good trees that, I guess, would probably be disease resistant or resistant that, you know, you would prefer to see people plant?
If we could do a mixture of oaks. Oaks are pretty resistant to, say, Asian longhorn beetle. Obviously, they're not going to be affected by emerald ash borer. Locust is a good hardy tree. You know, we've done a lot of trials where we just kind of plant these species and stand back and see what survives. Japanese pagoda tree has done very well. Hardy rubber tree. So we've got a list that the Office of Sustainability has helped us with, and it's quite comprehensive. So that's available as well for anyone who needs it.
So there is a list?
There is a list.
Okay.
Yep.
Also, before you forget, where can they find that list?
I don't know if it's on the website yet, but we can certainly
Okay.
post it on the website.
Let's see, tell me.
I,
question. I've noticed the umbrella magnolia is going nuts in Keeney Park as an understory tree, and that used to be a southern tree. And the pawpaw, that is, there's a grove of it now that's spreading at the Connecticut Historical Society, and that was also a southern tree. Does the tree list have that foresight to say like, hey, we're, you know?
It includes magnolia.
Okay, we're 10 years into,
Yeah.
you know, like what used to be like southern Pennsylvania climate.
Yeah. Yeah, we've incorporated some, something.
I like the pawpaw. That would be
The pawpaw
like
is really
awesome
cool,
tree
yeah.
on the riverfront.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we've incorporated more of that. Still, some of the species, like we've got willow oak planted in Bushnell Park, which is kind of more of a southern species. A few years ago, we had a really hard winter, and the whole top died. So we pruned it, and it's, you know, recovering quite well, but it doesn't have a good central lead. So that's something that we have to be cognizant of. And again, it's kind of trial and error, and it depends on what Mother Nature's going to throw at us.
As far as the type of tree, we have a lot of issues with respiratory health problems. There are a lot of trees that help clean the air. Does the list take that into consideration? Is cleaning up traffic emissions?
Well, yes. Really, any tree is going. So he asked if the list covers clean air as far as taking out fine particulates and all of that. Trees do that. They're like big lungs. So the more that we have, the better off we are, the less the asthma rates will be in the city.
Now we have a mic. My question is related to climate change, but I listened to the sugar maple reference, and I'm quite alarmed because I actually have evidence, because I live across the street from Mary Hooker School, and Jack and a few other folk, Kehoe, back in the days, had really made a big dent in treeing that school, and it has 2 sugar maples, old ones from those days. I mean, sorry, Jack. I'm old too. So, and then on the other side of the campus, there's a newer set of sugar maples, and they both look odd and bare and stressed, as you said. And I would not have put that to climate change. I thought maybe it's just an off year, or drought, too much heat. But I think there is something to be said about that, and how are we gonna manage that if we don't have any more of that orangey hue or the maple syrup.
Right. So we listened to a presentation, I want to say 2 years ago at the Urban Forest Council conference, and someone spoke on sugar maples and how in the state, their prediction is that within the next 30 years or so, that we won't have sugar maples in the state of Connecticut. That they're just moving north, which is really kind of terrifying. But there's been a lot of discussion on that.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a question. So maybe in private property that you are talking about, are you considering incentives, like tax incentives?
We've discussed it.
Because that it will help you and it can be more sustainable.
Right. So we have discussed tax incentives for property owners to plant on their property. So it is a topic of discussion, and hopefully we'll be moving that way fairly quickly.
Tony. A quick one. It's about tree removal. I just saw it float back up again today, the Brainerd Airport tree removal plan. and I believe it's 30 acres of mature trees that would be removed. And speaking of our city's lungs, that's terrifying, especially considering it being next to the trash plant and the MDC plant. The other thing is side thing. I'm getting 3 Knox fruit trees in our condo yard, and there are some programs out there floating around to get trees into Hartford yards, and I'm excited to put some trees in the corner there. But what do you think about that plan now that it's kind of come back up again, and it looks like they're considering the environmental impact study finished?
Yeah, I don't think that their environmental impact study is sufficient enough. They need to put some more work into it.
Another question?
Okay.
So you indicated 26% canopy coverage in the city now, and it was well over 30% in New Haven. And in order to maintain the city canopy, you need to plant, was it 1,200 trees a year?
1,400.
1,400 trees a year, and maybe 6,000 if we wanted to get up to New Haven's level.
Correct.
For 30 years.
For 30 years,
Mhm.
or thereabouts. That's incredible. What kind of budget do you have for planting trees?
Zero.
And, is it zero?
Yes, it is 0.
Right now.
Okay, so we don't have any budget to plant trees, and in order to maintain our canopy, we need 1,400 trees a year. We're in trouble.
That's the point.
Wow, that's incredible. And I think you indicate it's about $700,000 a year just to remove trees that have died?
Yes.
Are you actually spending that?
Probably not entirely because
You don't have the resources.
I don't have the resources, right. Right.
And tree maintenance, you don't have the resources for that either.
That's right. And we're contracting out all the work, and just to get the contractors here in the city regularly is pretty difficult because they have customers elsewhere.
Because of those issues.
This is depressing. Thank you.
I'm trying.
I'd like to put in a little positive note.
Please do, Jack. Please do.
Folks at the city of Hartford, including the mayor and assorted other folks, have caught on that our current circumstances are bad. In particular, that relying on contractors to do our tree work is very expensive and has all kinds of other problems associated with it. So there is a leaning toward reinstituting our forestry crew, our forestry division within Public Works. And Heather and I and other folks, Mike Looney at Public Works and Thea Montañez in the mayor's office and so forth, are working pretty hard to figure out how to do that. If we're able to do that, not only will we be able to take on the challenges of urban forestry in a better way, but we'll be able to do it for less money. So if you get a chance to just kind of indicate that moving in that direction is a good idea, and support those who are trying to get that done. That's a really good thing to do. I'm really hopeful right now. I mean, 6 months ago, we didn't feel anything like this, but actually what happened was that this kid, sorry, I forgot his name, Rodriguez, had a tree land on him in Goodwin Park. And folks caught on that not dealing with the situation was a bad idea. And we need to, I think we might need to install a monument to him.
It's a good
He's
idea.
still alive and happy, but it really started things moving. So any opportunity we get to just kind of keep that ball rolling is a good thing right now.
Oh my goodness. So I'm going to cut in.
Uh-oh, here we go.
I have a little commentary myself. I'm on the Park and Rec Advisory Commission. And I can't tell you how devastating this is to all of our parks. Colts Park is the least forested. It was established for recreational purposes and with athletic fields in mind, expanses where people could get together and have fun. But our trees, which are mostly at the front of the park, which gives it a stately, lovely entrance, I know those trees won't be there in 20 years. We're going to have a barren entrance, and it's going to be hot. And the reason why people walk through that area on the way to wherever it is they go is because it's cool and shady. They walk along anywhere where there is shade and a path, and that will not exist. I have tried to help get trees in the park. We came up with a master plan where trees were marked. We want these trees here. And any monies that happen to come our way, we want to make sure people can easily pull out the plan and say, they'd like some trees.
Mm-hmm.
So I advocate, I like the idea of, private owners. I own a house, but I have 2 dinky trees. But they're trees.
But they're fruit trees.
They're fruit trees. And this year they actually got fruit for the first time in 12 years. So it was pretty exciting. But I really wanted to advocate for the parks. But parks are not, I call it, they shouldn't be the green islands and, as you pointed out, the desert in the rest of the city. And I know there were 3 other people who put up their hands. So I'm going to go who's closest and then I'll move it out.
How about a adopt a tree or plant a tree program where people from the suburbs and the city could pay for a tree to be planted in the city? You decide where it goes, but they pay for it, and online you could pay for it. What approximate costs are there per tree? I know species vary in cost, but per tree to plant in the city in order to maintain this canopy, what do you think the costs are per tree to have them planted properly so you can get that going?
So part of what we've been discussing in our tree working group meetings is extending the contract. As I was referencing to the small trees before as babies, they kind of need a good 10 years of, annual maintenance, watering, all of that before they really get established. So it may, by the time it's all said and done, be like $1,200 or
More.
$1,500.
There you go.
About $1,500 a tree. So, but at least it's guaranteed, essentially, to get up to 10 years. Where at that point, it's been structurally pruned to last. The weeds have been kept away from it. Hopefully, the mowers. It's been mulched. And it's given a really good start, so that way it gets, an extra 30, 40 years to where we don't really have to bother with it. That's the goal.
Anyone else?
That's expensive.
Oh my goodness.
Give your husband first.
Sure.
My wife drags me over to Colt Park on a regular basis to prune trees, the suckers. So I think there's a lot of, we've been trained actually, but I think there's a lot of, I'll say, low-skill maintenance like that people could help with.
Right.
Is there a way to expand that so that it offloads some of that routine work from you? I mean, to me, this is like getting rid of picking up litter. The simple things that we can do that allows you to do the more skilled activities.
Yeah, absolutely. We could host workshops and start training people. Just get a group together and we'll go for it.
I think the youth corps would be excellent. Tom and I go home at 8 for hours.
It is hard work.
Quick question. Thank you, Heather, for everything you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
On Albany Avenue, I should only answer this. They're putting up planters so the trees can be planted there. Did they talk to the city in terms of, I know trees have to be maintained there, who's gonna water them, make sure they survive, so on and so forth? Has that been discussed at all?
It's been discussed. I believe it's gonna be on my shoulders.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Get the merchants involved.
I agree with that. Right?
My turn. So I live near Tom and Donna, and I'm familiar with the trees in Cole Park that have suffered. And that stately ash tree was taken down, which is kind of sad. But actually, my question has to do with the winter storms. And it seems like there's trees that fall down and take out power lines. We all have underground service in my neighborhood anyway, so it's not an issue. But it seems like the power company is behind the 8 ball when it comes to being proactive with making sure that trees don't take out power lines. Do you collaborate with utilities at all about that to kind of get ahead of that so that it's not such an incredible issue with taking out power lines? And also, I assume you probably also are involved in a statewide level as far as some advisory capacity. Thank you.
Yeah, so whenever Source's contractors are conducting work, they always contact me and get permission on whether or not they're doing their ETT pruning or if they need removals done, which I would post trees. Sometimes I tell them that they cannot remove these trees as well. It depends on their species, their health, and all of that, and if they can be pruned instead of removing. They kind of set their own schedule. They're kind of like their own beast. I've been talking about trying to get both Eversource and UI together and getting them to contribute to a fund that would reforest our major cities in the state. So that's something I'd like to see in the Forest Action Plan. I believe that they're doing a lot of removals, and it's the cities that are really suffering from that. So if we can get them to contribute there, we'd be doing really well.
Quick thing, do you have any issues or have any future issues of anything with property rights coming with NIMBY laws or anything, or NIMBY people or anything like that? Because we have an interesting relationship with trees in Connecticut. We love them until a storm comes and they all have to die.
Yeah.
And then, we're weird that way.
Right.
But then people are like, 5 minutes ago they wanted a tree there, now they don't. Is there anything like that? Do you foresee any issues like that? Or if you have any now?
I mean, you've got trees that are mature and that are heaving sidewalks or invading people's sewer laterals, right? The thing is that people don't understand that it's the sewer laterals that are so old and compromised, and that's why the tree roots are there. So technically, if the tree is healthy, we're not removing the tree, especially if it's a city tree. There's also the tree ordinance, which has private property owners. They have to come to me for permission to remove anything that's 13 inches in diameter or greater. I haven't really said, well, I mean, I have told people no, especially like Eversource. It does give me some opportunity to kind of put my foot down. Again, it's more about education. It's explaining to people how important these trees are and the value that they're providing to everyone. I mean, I get complaints about leaves. They have to pick up the leaves. I mean, yes, that is part of life. That's what I say. And then DPW even complains, well, we've got leaves. And I'm like, it's job security. And the guys love the overtime. So give it to them and let's plant more trees.